So this is going to hopefully be a pretty short statement that is just a response and reaction to a number of things I've heard from people on social media and in private conversations who have detracted from my fight for justice to try to be able to play Scrabble again. And it was precipitated by just some recent interactions with one player named Winter in the last day or two. But I want to be clear, I'm not just talking about him. This is a common theme that I've heard from a number of people. And there's really an overarching theme of respect here. And by that I mean both respect of people for another person and a person's self-respect. So one thing that has just driven me nuts that people keep doing is acting like I'm a bad guy in this Scrabble situation because I tried to defend myself, because I tried to explain myself, because I tried to take people to court for defaming me. And this is just an absolutely absurd point of view. Now, I can see that you may not like some of my language and how aggressive I'm in particular conversations. I will give a counter argument that this is what happens when you mistreat a person so badly for so many years and you give them PTSD. You're not going to get the most civil version of them, especially when that person has already spent 6.5 years being civil and only gotten more and more abused as a result of all of it. But I really want to focus specifically on the fact that, I fully understand, and I feel like I've explained this in a number of my writings and videos before, that I had a path to playing Scrabble again sooner. Is that if I had been willing to bend over backwards to NASPA, if I had been willing to take down my blog in full and sign documents making it look like I was the guilty party, they would have ended my original suspension, possibly even in less than the original 3 years. And I've heard from several people that I should just be groveling, that they would have taken that deal and stuff like that. And to me, it's it's not only no freaking way, but it's you would do that? Do you have no self-respect? Do you not care about your good name? That you are willing to play the role of having people think that you sexually harassed or assaulted somebody when that did not happen? When you allow people to think that you would show up to tournaments with guns or something like that, when you've literally never held a gun in your life? You've been anti-gun, you've contributed to anti-gun charities? No, this is just disgusting, defamatory narratives, and I need to be able to counter that. And I have way too much self-respect to act like the fucking guilty party when I am not in any way guilty. And I'm just really, really disgusted and disappointed by people who feel like they would do that. They clearly are lacking something in that self-respect department. But it's not just self-respect. It's this defamation and how much effect it's had on my life. Let me be clear here. Even before the Clinchys escalated to trying to get me banned all around the world in 2022, I already dealt with a ton of anger and upset about this because of the ways that they were eroding my social group. I had people who I'd been friends with for 2 decades who just didn't want to talk to me anymore, who I knew were gossiping about me but wouldn't tell me what they wanted to say. And I was losing opportunities to play Scrabble with other people, especially after I moved to the Pacific Northwest. And I'm not just talking about tournaments. I'm talking about even just social get-togethers with people. And they were just doing shitty things and saying shitty things behind my back. And it was really obvious. And I was getting a lot of wind of it a lot of the time. And it was stressful for me. And I was working back then. But the fact is that eventually in 2019, I left my job voluntarily. And then I went back to work a little bit during pandemic. And then eventually I actually lost a job later than that. But in both cases, I was, and keep in mind this is all before they actually started the whole thing with NASPA, the incident report to get me banned from Scrabble. I was in such a fragile emotional state. I was so upset about what was happening to me in that Scrabble social world and the way that stuff was interfering with me playing Scrabble, both socially and in tournaments, that it was the case that I was not able to be at my mental best, and it eroded my relationships with work people. It caused me to be so upset and reactive a lot of the time. It made just my whole life really stressful and upsetting. And part of what I needed to do, why I took that first year off of work, was because I needed to unplug from all of the stress, and I needed to start dealing with this shit head on. And that's one of the things that gets me too, is that people talk all the time about how, oh, I need to live my life, I need to get on with it and ignore this and all that. I'm like, no. Living my life and ignoring this is what I did from 2017 up until 2020. I spent 3 years ignoring their craziness and just focusing on my job and playing Scrabble in the places I could play and pretending this madness wasn't happening. And all that happened in that 3 years is that my stress levels kept increasing, my employability kept decreasing, my mental health kept decreasing as a result of this all. And then these people escalated it to a ridiculous level. And let me be clear, when I say they escalated to a ridiculous level, I'm not even talking about starting with the 2022 thing. The last job I ever had, the one job that I was fired from, the only job I've ever been fired from, was a job that I had in 2021. And it was literally 1 week into that job that I got that email in early 2021 from maybe not even less than a week, from the Coco Online Club on Woogles. And this literally landed in my inbox in the last few minutes before I had my first one-on-one conversation with the guy who was my new manager. And it was like just dropping a grenade in my lap and causing me a bunch of emotional anguish and pain because they were being just obnoxious shitheads, implying that I'm an abuser, saying big things, saying I can't play in an online club with people while we're all in the middle of pandemic lockdowns. And that is the moment when I had to start talking to my new boss. And I'm not saying it's the whole reason I ended up losing that job or anything like that, but it put me on a bad emotional foot. It was very upsetting and distressing right away as I was starting this job that I ended up not lasting very long in. So these people were already doing tons of emotional damage to me. And then a year later in 2022, they went ballistic. And literally, Evans put in writing that their intention in submitting all of this stuff was to get me banned from Scrabble worldwide. And it's just like, people like this, bullies like this, cannot win. And this is the most important thing in my life. I thought I made this clear from my videos about my childhood abuse. The most important thing in life to me is standing up to bullies, not letting them win. And if you act like I'm the bully, no, I'm the counterpuncher. I have only gotten bullying because I've been bullied so much already, because so many people have believed in or pretended to believe in the lies, have been complicit in it or actively involved in the bullying. And one thing I learned from my childhood abuser is that you need to fight back. You need to overpower the bullies. You can't reason with them. You can't talk them into doing the right thing. And that should be very, very clear from the whole history of this. Literally, NASPA, WESPA, these Scrabble organizations never, ever acted in good faith from day one. And there was never a way of getting them to act in good faith. The only way I can get them to stop abusing me is show them that I am more powerful than they are, that I can abuse them in response harder than they abuse me. And that is defending myself. That is standing up for myself. That is having self-respect. Ellie Dangor is another one of these guys. I really don't even want to keep talking about him. But literally, he started complaining to me in this conversation we had on Facebook Messenger that I was doing wrong because I wrote the blogs, because I took people to court. No. These people were already doing horrible things to me for 3.5 years before I wrote those blogs. And then they literally escalated a few years later to try to get me banned from Scrabble worldwide based on complete and total lies, saying horrible things about me that had no basis in fact, that is clearly defamation. And me standing up for myself and taking them to court for defamation is me being the bad guy? That's an insane point of view. But a big part of the reason it is an insane point of view is because it's exactly the storyline that Chris Lipe has been giving people. Not him alone, but especially him. And I want to tell you about another story I had with another Scrabbler and share some really choice quotes. And I want to tell you also that I'm not going to give the name of this Scrabble player. I'm going to preserve this person's anonymity. And I'm also saying I have no particular hard feelings to this Scrabble player because this Scrabble player and I actually had a very civil conversation. And the quotes I'm going to give you are early in the time that I had the conversation with this person. And I do think that we actually made a lot of progress in getting this person to understand my point of view and maybe see that not all of these were really reasonable points of view. So I believe this person might not stand by all of these words anymore. But I still think that these are really choice quotes that show what this person's perspective was about me and this whole situation based not on having any conversations with me, only based on what other people said. And I don't have all of the evidence to prove it, but based on something this person said, it is highly suggestive to me that the person who most influenced their opinion on this, who most talked to them about this, was Chris Lipe. So this is some of the choice quotes this person gave me. To be frank, though, it really doesn't matter what I think about what happened, except to the extent that you don't come across as some lone credible person and everyone else is crazy. And I'm like, what? I never said everyone else is crazy. I wasn't accusing people of being crazy. A whole lot of other people are lying, right? And I've caught them in lies. I provided massive amounts of evidence that they are lying. I've presented that there is malice here. There is bullying. There is literal conspiracy in the legal sense of the word, all right? So anyway, they're the ones who are trying to write me off as crazy and say, oh, I'm just saying they're crazy. So forget the whole crazy thing. This is clearly someone else putting words and ideas in this person's head. And then this person harped on this particular letter that I sent to Jennifer shortly before the New Orleans tournament, when I said I would speak my mind to her there at the tournament. And I've already apologized for that particular letter. And I've made clear a million times that is the only thing that I've done wrong in this whole story. And keep in mind that that letter was in 2017. I apologized for it in 2018. I played Scrabble in tournaments during that whole time, 2017-18 up to 2022. It wasn't until 5 years later that I got banned. And there's no way that particular letter that I'd already apologized for years earlier and the Clinchys reactions alone would have been enough to ban me. A whole lot of other people knew they were being unreasonable, and they were the ones making a mountain out of a molehill. The only reason they managed to get enough momentum to get me banned was Lola joining in and bringing all these lies into the picture too. And everything Lola said was false, and I provided tons and tons, hundreds of pages of evidence in terms of text messages and emails showing that this stuff was false. But this person, in believing that this initial email I sent was so bad, and keep in mind, this person didn't even hear or talk to anyone else about it until 2023, and I didn't even talk to this person until the last year, until 2025. But this person reflecting on this said, nah, if I were Scrabble dictator, I would have given you like 3 months for that. In other words, for that email. And the lifetime ban only for when you started to file harassing lawsuits. So get this. I get a lifetime ban from Scrabble because I filed harassing lawsuits. Now, calling my lawsuits harassing is a completely ridiculous take. I was defending myself. I was standing up for my good name. There was nothing harassing about them. And yes, they got this particular motion passed that is this anti-slap motion that's supposed to take frivolous lawsuits out of court. But I think I made very clear by posting the full details on the blog, by literally giving the entire audio clip of the hearing, it was a terrible call by the judge to uphold this anti-slap motion, and it was very clear the judge was unprepared, hadn't read my side of the story, and misunderstood a lot of basic facts about the story, and was throwing my case out, not because the anti-slap should have referred to it, but just because a very unprofessional job had been done by my previous lawyer, and she didn't take it seriously. So, this person said not only that I should have gotten a lifetime ban for filing harassing lawsuits, but also said, I do think that stuff is a level of escalation that threatens the community and people shouldn't engage in that. That's the reason we haven't talked before, this person was saying to me in 2025. So get that. Okay, I'm the one who is escalating by taking these people to court. How insane a point of view is that? First off, I wasn't taking any of the Scrabble associations to court. I wasn't taking a lot of people in the Scrabble community to court. I was taking only the 3 specific people who had put a ton of lies in print and admitted that they do so with the intent to get me banned worldwide from Scrabble to court. Those are the only people I took to court. I didn't even take Steve Pellin into court, even though in my opinion he was just as guilty as they were, and he probably could have been a defendant in the case. So I held back in terms of not suing Steve Pellin, in terms of not suing the Scrabble associations themselves. I mean, both WIGPO and Coco made unilateral attacks on me when I was not even part of those organizations. I could have sued the organizations as a whole, but I didn't. And I'm the one who's escalating by standing up for myself. And then this person said, my position is that most people can't afford to fight defamation lawsuits, and so generally they shouldn't be filed against ordinary people just for saying stuff about you that you don't like. I wouldn't do it if you started lying about me. You can think my position is ridiculous all you like. And I'm like, okay, this wasn't just not people saying things they didn't like about me. This was people literally starting a chain reaction of events that got me banned worldwide from Scrabble. And it was blatant lies. And they said that I was going to show up to a tournament with a gun. They said that I committed sexual assault that I never committed, and that I literally later got evidence that Jennifer was lying about that. And I only got all that evidence because we had discovery for the court case, because I was able to ask her requests for information. So, how ridiculous a position is this? Now, I'll tell you, as I said, this person did amend their position in talking to them more. But the reason I wanted to share these quotes with you is because it's actually a very clear sign of the exact kinds of arguments, the exact way that Chris Lipe was presenting this stuff, the exact way that he bent people's minds and deceived them. And if I could get this person on record as telling me that Chris Lipe actually said these things to this person, got this person believing that, then guess what? I might actually have pretty damn good evidence for a case for defamation against Chris Lipe. Now again, I don't want to take this stuff to courts if I don't need to. I want the Scrabble associations to wise up and quit the lies and start treating me right. And as long as they're willing to do that and apologize for what they've done and take full responsibility for their actions, then there never will need to be any more legal action about this. But if you're going to leave me no choice, I'm going to keep finding a way forward, whether it's in the courts or elsewhere, whether it's in the press, whether it's writing my own books. I wanted to become World Scrabble Champion. I wanted to put all of my energy into mastering this game and being the best ever. It is what I care most about. And if you take that away from me, then all of that energy, all of that relentlessness, all of that resolve is going to go to fucking your lives up worse than you fucked mine up. Now, you think it's better to just let me play the game and get out of my way, or have this brilliant a mind, this dedicated and relentless a person putting all of their life energy into making sure you get your just desserts for what you did to me, shitheads?